Well, my friends, welcome to the Recovery Connection podcast. So glad you could join us tonight live on Facebook. I guess I just want to start off by saying, we love doing this podcast, and it's so nice to have community members come in and share with us. And, one of our missions here is to connect and educate all the organizations in Ottawa and people in recovery and viewers, like you, to the vast resources that have gone under the radar in our community. There's so many good organizations who are doing such great work, especially the way that everyone has accommodated in the past year and a half to keep those services going. And so I'm just so glad that you're all able to join us. Remember to join us live on Facebook and YouTube at 8 p.m. on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month, where I'll be chatting with friends and people in recovery and community organizations on topics that are important to us, because we need to have a voice. If you're joining us live, please remember to send in your questions for the question and answer period at the end of this podcast, and after we have a great conversation with our guest. The Recovery Connection is available on all major streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts 1 week after tonight. So 1 week after the live podcast, you can go on those platforms and listen to what we had to say. And John, our producer, does such a great job in editing out all the ahs and ums and stuff that I do. So it's really nice to listen to. So you can also join our website at jerichoroad.ca to learn more about Jericho Road and the Recovery Connection and keep up to date with what's going on. So now that all that stuff's over and done with, I want to introduce our guest tonight. And we got to know Robert Ryan just through our connection with Serenity Renewal as a part of our vision of kind of connecting us all. And so Robert agreed to come and talk to me tonight. You wouldn't believe sometimes I have to convince people to come and talk to me, but you said yes right away, so I'm very happy with that. So it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Robert Ryan. And so let's start off. Robert, what do you do at Serenity Renewal?
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm delighted to share my story and my experiences. So away we go. My connection with Serenity is I am the chairperson of the board. I've been on the board of Serenity since 2018.
Wow.
And I've served as chair for the past year.
Yeah.
So it's been a very interesting ride, shall we say?
To say the least. Yeah, yeah.
No, it's for those of you who don't know Serenity Renewal for families, we've been around for 35 years. Our founder was Sister Louise Dunn, a Catholic nurse and a Spitfire, and someone who was a pioneer in the field of understanding that the disease of addiction affects the addict, obviously, but it also affects the family of the addict as well. And Sister, way back when she got into this field, quickly started to understand that if we don't help the family of the addict, we cannot help the addict. So Serenity's genesis was really looking at the complex factors.
Yep.
And hence the name, Serenity Renewal for families.
Yeah. I when you said that Serenity Renewal's been around for 25 years, that struck
35,
me.
35,
sorry, that struck
yeah.
me because, Jericho's been around for 30, I think, from day one when Ray Desmarais started. So
Yeah.
both of these organizations have been around for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've helped. I mean, I can probably safely say that we've helped thousands and thousands of people in Ottawa over the years.
Yeah. And one of the things that always struck me, that when we were talking before we got on air tonight, if you've been in recovery and are actively involved in carrying the message in the city, you can't help but have heard of Sister Louise.
Yes, exactly. exactly. Yeah.
I think she was celebrated at Recovery Day 3 years ago.
She was. Exactly. That's right. Yes.
As a pioneer of recovery in Ottawa and for all the great work that she did.
Yep. I had the really good fortune of just as I was joining the board, I believe it was back in 2018, I was lucky enough to serve with Sister on the board for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And then she got ill,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I got a taste of what this 85-year-old woman stood for.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting, all because her spirit of love and care was so obvious, and her passion and her commitment towards making everyone feel worthy was quite something to sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, obviously, when the founder, who had such a magnitude, when she did pass away, there was a period, unfortunately, on the board where we seriously thought about maybe it's time we close the doors. Our funding was quite precarious, and we decided, let's just see how it goes. And it's been going rather well ever since.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really happy to say that.
And what drew you to Serenity?
This is a public broadcast, isn't it?
I mean, okay. Let me rephrase that. Why Serenity
Sure.
for you to be volunteering?
No,
because
sure.
I always ask, because I serve on the board of the Ottawa Food Bank.
Yeah.
And people do ask me, why are you serving on the board at the Ottawa Food Bank? And for me, it was very simple, because I was so familiar with the work that they had done, being at Jericho Road, and the amounts of people that they had helped, and so it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I asked the question. What drew you there to give up your time?
Sure. Well, a few things. I myself have been in a recovery now for 6 years, and as we all know, doing some type of service is really key. Now, I've also been a fundraiser and a not-for-profit manager for over 32 years.
Wow.
So I have a lot of experience in this field of making organizations work.
Yeah.
So I was approached by some people at the time. One was a volunteer on the board.
Yeah.
And the other one was a longtime facilitator. They got word of me, and so they invited me to lunch. Mm-hmm. And little did I know their ulterior motives. It was nothing about being kind.
You were thinking of the free meal.
Yeah, exactly. I was the sacrificial pig on the altar.
Fabulous.
So, I mean, honestly, it was like, because at that time, they needed help. And I said, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll be on the board. I would like to do that. And honestly, there are some organizations, I mean, I've actually worked as a board consultant for about 5 years in the States, and I've served on a lot of boards. Being a fundraiser, of course, it's like I've worked with lots of boards. So I know a little bit about how boards tick.
What keeps you in the fundraising game? Because that's a hard game.
I don't know.
But you know what I mean? Like,
No, I do.
We do fundraising.
I do,
We have
yeah.
to in order to survive, and I find it sometimes very, to be polite, taxing. You
Yes.
know, and so how
That's
do you?
being very polite.
How do you manage to stay in that game for so many years?
Well, it's funny. I'm actually retiring in December from my full-time job at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa. I fell into fundraising without any great plan or thought. I wanted to be an opera singer, but in my late 20s, I actually did a lot of singing.
Really?
But sort of in my late 20s, early 30s, I started to realize that singing for one supper it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
So I started to do other things. A temp agency landed me in this not-for-profit at the time. I was living in San Francisco.
Okay.
The Trust for Public Land.
Yeah.
And I also went to Vassar College in the States.
Okay.
And what I quickly realized was at this not-for-profit, all the fundraisers were like always having a good time, schmoozing, throwing parties. I was like, hell, I could do that. and
Sign me up.
and get paid for it? Yeah, I'll do that. So, no, but also too, what I realized is that in the field of fundraising, I'm actually quite honored to have served so many incredible missions over the years. And my life has been enriched tenfold. I mean, I can't explain enough in terms of the experiences I've had in my life serving missions that are not only interesting, but the purpose of what they do changes the world. So, I mean, I'm ending this 32-year stint thinking like, wow, I actually did something.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
It is. It is.
And obviously in my work with Serenity, as a board member and a volunteer, I still get that feeling of I'm doing something that's really important. And I can see the change. So,
and I get that. I get that totally. We, especially in the field of addiction recovery, we see a lot of loss.
A tremendous amount
of loss, and especially in the past little while with this pandemic. But it's those wins that always keep me going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're few and far between, but a win is a win.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the big challenge, running NFPs. What do you think the big challenge is? Like, I know there's a lot of challenges, but in your view, from a fundraiser point of view, what's the big challenge?
Well, in terms of running not-for-profits?
Yeah.
In general, sure. Yeah, I'll take Serenity as an example because I know it very well.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, these organizations, their missions are really key, very important. The staff work incredibly hard, but it's resource poor. And year after year, if you don't have a solid base of support, you simply can't offer the services that you should be. As I mentioned earlier, seriously, in 2019, the board sat down in December and seriously thought about it's time to close the doors.
Yeah.
So, I think it's actually, I do have one very funny story with sister and her co-founder. She was another Catholic nun. I met her, and she was explaining to me, fundraising. Oh God, I can't stand that. What, asking people?
For
How could I
money,
possibly? No, I can't ask people. Oh no, I don't like it. And I'm thinking, okay, so how did you act? So what? How did this organization survive?
Yeah.
And she looked at me in all seriousness, as only a Catholic nun can, and said, no, God will provide.
Yeah.
God has provided for the past 35 years, and he will continue.
Yeah.
Now, as a fundraiser, I learned very early on, hope is a 4-letter word. It could be a fundraising strategy, if you wish, but it's probably not the best strategy to apply.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is that Serenity has survived many times through the skin of its teeth.
Yeah.
So there's a certain scrappiness about the sector, about these small organizations who are supported by teams of people, volunteers, donors. And I believe with some of these organizations, it's in their DNA.
Yeah.
It's how they came to be. It's how they work. It's how they live, that somehow they do survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm happy to say now with Serenity, I think our funding models are working better.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to get more funding from the City of Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Big shout out. Thank you, City of Ottawa. Huge shout out if you're listening. The Trillium Foundation.
Yeah, OTF,
huge shout out. So, and the Community Foundation of Ottawa.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get some of the buy-in from larger, more established stakeholders.
Yeah.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
The bad news is once you start to build a fundraising operation, you have to feed the beast.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just the way it is, I guess.
Yeah. And you and I, when we were talking in our pre podcast chat, we were saying how as nonprofits we're able to adapt really quickly,
right?
Because we're so used to doing so much with so little,
exactly,
right? And so having challenges come our way to a normal business would be a big deal, but to us it's not, because we're so used to doing so much with so little and facing adversity very quickly.
Right. And
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that I think the pandemic is a fantastic example of how Serenity, as a small organization, was able to pivot very, very quickly from offering our counseling services, the workshops we do and such. Mm-hmm. And we switched very quickly online. I think
a lot of the recovery community in this city pivoted very quickly.
Yeah,
we didn't have a choice.
Right.
So there was no let's talk about it. It was no, what are we doing? Right. Yeah. That's wonderful.
Well, and also too, I think oftentimes with these smaller organizations, the experimentation and the creation of different types of programs, seeing if it works, trying new things, failing, and being okay with the failure, and trying something else. I think innovation often starts with these smaller operations.
Yeah.
And one thing that Sister Louise did, I believe she went to the States in the 1980s, and she spent close to a year, I think, studying with the it was the
sorry, it's okay.
Hazeldean
Yes.
Foundation. And she took a lot of information, a lot of the thinking, a lot of the coursework with her back here.
Mm-hmm.
And she applied all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So really, the genesis of a lot of our programming stemmed from her studies.
I think from a lot of
with
people
Hazeldean.
who are in the NFP sector, especially in the recovery sector, we take a lot from Hazeldean.
Yeah.
It's a marvelous institution in the Betty Ford Center, and
Yes.
if any of our listeners out there to take a look at their website, it's just marvelous, and what they offer and what they're trying to do and how successful they've been.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking also, because I always bring this up when I have our community partners here, is the halo effect. And the recent one in Canada statistic for the halo effect is for every dollar you give to a nonprofit, it's worth about $5 to a city or municipal or provincial organization. And basically what's that saying is you're better off to give your money to the nonprofits.
Yes.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a few things happening here. The not-for-profit sector, I'm very proud to say, I think is governed by good people. They have good boards. There's enough of checks and balances in place where I think these organizations know how to work effectively with the resources that they have. I think by and large, the governance models work effectively. The other factor that plays, and I'm going to say something so painfully obvious, I know the audience is going to go, duh, but I don't care. It's not for profit.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah.
When you're actually thinking and strategizing and working towards a not-for-profit model,
Yeah.
when you take out the equation that you have shareholders or you have other people who are concerned about not doing the right thing, but making more money off of something that you're doing, ultimately doing the right thing takes second place towards doing what is necessary.
Yes.
In a manner that, by and large, is ethical.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about this, all because I've spent my entire
life.
working life in this sector.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine that says in the nonprofit sector, your shareholders are the people you serve.
Exactly.
And
ultimately, how can you let them down?
Exactly. And when you look at it that way, it's to me, it's enlightening.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So, what do you think? How do I say this? Because you had said it, and I put it in quotations in my notes. The highs and lows of fundraising, like an accordion. I loved when you said that.
Yeah.
Because right away I got that picture of the accordion going in.
Lawrence Welk.
Yeah. So what did you mean by that?
Yeah, well, again, I'll use Serenity as an example, but I could use a lot of other not-for-profits. Serenity went through stages of tremendous growth where they were very savvy and they got in huge grants from various funders. And again, if you're used to being small and you get in a lot of money, your inclination is to grow and to spend it. That's great. Go for it. But eventually those monies dry up and they end. And if you don't have either a solid strategic plan or you don't have a real solid fundraising plan, you're going to shrink. So I think oftentimes some organizations don't plan for long-term growth. It's more short-term. And sometimes in the short term, you can expand, and then you have to shrink, and then you expand, and you shrink. So
Yeah.
that's
And I can relate to that because
It's-
we've done it at Jericho.
It's
We've
typical.
expanded, and then 2 years later, we've had to drop a house.
oops, what did we do?
What did we do?
Right.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, whose idea was that?
Yeah, right. Wasn't mine.
It wasn't mine. You know? Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, with nonprofits, especially from a public perception, is that if we end up having a surplus at the end of the year,
That's horrible.
that's horrible.
You can't do that. Of course you
Why
can't do
do we
that.
have this mentality?
Because it's a stupid mentality.
Yeah.
No, actually, okay, I praise the not-for-profit sector. Now I will not praise it. What the public and what a lot of funders don't understand, and what the for-profit sector gets time and time again, is R&D is not a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Research and development, it takes money. It takes money to make money. It takes money to figure out really good programming. It takes money to hire good people,
Yeah.
because we're not elephants and we don't work for peanuts. And I'll say that again.
Yeah.
We are not elephants and we do not work for peanuts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Why? Okay. So I'm going to interrupt. Why does the public have this, perception or this belief that if you're working in the nonprofit sector, you shouldn't be making what someone in the profit sector is making?
I do think that perception is changing. I really do. Over the years, I think people have come to understand just how large this sector is
Mm-hmm.
and how vital it is to the health of our society.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still a stigma attached to the whole idea of, well, you're working in it because it's out of the goodness and kindness of
Yes.
your heart.
Yeah.
Of course you would do something. Yes, of course I do that, but I got to eat too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I remember.
so,
I remember
no, it
reading
is
an
changing.
article in the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and they were saying how people who are working in the recovery non-for-profit sector are very much underpaid. And why are we underpaying people with lived experience, where their experience is just as valuable, or maybe in some situation even more valuable than someone who went to college or whatever and got their social services degree, or and so why are we doing this? And we have to stop doing it. Yeah.
I don't have the answer.
You'll get back to me when that
Yeah,
pops into your head.
I will.
Yeah.
However, I will say something for various funding models. An often overlooked area of fundraising is planned giving. It's when people die and they leave money in their wills to their favorite charities.
Yeah.
I can't stress this enough. A little known secret about fundraising with hospitals, and especially with higher education institutions like the University of Ottawa, all others, the income off of planned giving is huge. And it's something, unfortunately, in our sector with smaller charities like Jericho, like Serenity, it could be quite a fulsome, robust, predictable stream of income.
Yeah.
So encouraging our supporters to leave money in their estates to their favorite charities is really important, because ultimately you can't take it with you.
Yeah, there was.
So that's my plug for planned giving.
Well, no, but you're bang on, because there was an article in LinkedIn I was reading the other day on not-for-profits in the States, and the big the top 10 not-for-profits and how much money that they take in every year, and like 3 out of the top 5 were universities.
Yeah, right.
Just blew me away.
Yeah,
and most of it was planned giving.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we can do the same thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about the pains of growing and expanding in the not-for-profit sector. we kind of touched base before on that accordion,
Mm.
and you know, sometimes we expand and then we have to shrink a little and then expand again. How do you think that we stay relevant as a nonprofit? How do we continue to stay relevant
Yeah.
through the changing of things?
Sure. Well, I think in our field of addiction and helping those families and people who have this illness, it's really staying on top of where the where the sector is going.
Yeah.
I know for us at Serenity, what we started to realize is that our niche is offering people short-term counseling. We offer educational workshops. We offer support to families, including children.
Yeah.
We also offer aftercare
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
So basically, you know, I mean, our bundle of services, if you will basically help someone who is either in early stages of recovery, or they've had a relapse and they're out of rehab, or their families have they can't cope.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, our niche is in that area.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, it's just I find that, you know, I mean, all over the city we have so many of these services.
Yeah.
But we're all sort of looking at the problem from different lenses.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think you summed that up really well. You know, one of the things that we did here at Jericho was start a family support meeting, because, you know, speaking of how the relevancy and that just came out of people reaching out to us and saying, okay, you know, my son is going through your program, but we don't know what to do. You know, like when he gets out, what do we do?
Right. Yeah.
You know, which is totally understandable, because I think of the pain and the suffering that I put my parents through, and the lack of information or resources that they had to deal with me. Good golly, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's how that all kind of started. And so that's part of the remaining relevant to the people that we're serving.
Yes.
You know, I think the relevancy comes from the needs that we see.
Yes.
Right? Because unfortunately, as a society, we are recessing the services that a lot of people who are experiencing addiction, homelessness, whatever it may be, those services are slowly being pulled back.
Yeah. Well, also too, I think one thing that I've always found remarkable with Serenity is that all because our roots are very deep with the Catholic Church, and I'm really proud to say this, and it's true, we don't turn anyone away for lack of money and funding. Like, if you need help, we'll figure it out.
And that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
because
it's sometimes
we kind of
scary.
Yeah,
but
well, yeah, it's for us, right?
Yeah.
yeah. Because, you know, we do the same thing here at Jericho, and we'll say to people, you know, there is a fee, but it's based on income, and if you don't have any income, we're not going to say no.
Right.
Like it's that simple, right? And you know, part of this previous conversation about the the resources being pulled back, especially in our provincial government, I think those cracks are getting bigger.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think we notice it because when those cracks get bigger, we see the direct result of that, and
Well, of
that's
course.
more people needing help.
Yeah.
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 Let's kind of continue with that thinking about misunderstanding in society about addiction and what causes it. Do you think that we're doing a good job on educating the public, or do you think that we're leaving that to the government to do and they're doing a piss poor job?
I think what's happened is addiction has become such a problem in our society that we can no longer sweep it under the table. I really think that too many of our young people have died from overdoses that should not have happened.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our policies, our laws, some of it is well-intentioned, but at the same time, honestly, I mean, I grew up in the States. I'm in my early 60s. I remember Nancy Reagan standing there
Just
with her
say no.
huge eyes looking at Ronnie. Just say no. Seriously? But unfortunately, that just say no mentality is, unfortunately, it's still alive and well.
Yeah.
And the stigma of addiction is such that society would rather just say no.
Yeah.
But I think now it's become, I mean, you can't ignore the fact. In fact, I was just listening to the CBC morning show yesterday, I believe, and they had this whole segment.
Yeah.
And it's just horrible.
The numbers
numbers
are just horrifying.
The numbers are devastating.
Yep.
And the sad thing is, this could all be avoided if we started to understand that, these people need more help, and it's okay to.
And it's not a choice.
It's a disease.
Yes.
It's a disease. So I do think, unfortunately, because it's becoming more out in the open, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a ways to go to understand, like, what is it going to take to stem this tide?
Yeah. Yeah. And things like just say no
is
set
not
us back 25 to 50 years in the understanding of mental health and addiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, if it was a moral choice, you and I wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
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 So how do you think we can go about as communities, as people in the nonprofit sector, and let's just say in this city, let's not think any bigger, but just this city. How do you think we can start going about educating people better? Because I firmly believe that we can't leave it up to the government, whether it's municipal, provincial. We just can't leave it up to them.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Are we doing a good job in educating the John and Jane public, or do you think we could be improving there?
Well, I do have to preface that this is not my area of expertise, and I'm only speaking as someone who is a volunteer and who is involved in the recovery community. I think there are a number of small organizations like Serenity and like Jericho who do a fantastic job. We certainly educate all of our supporters, all of our donors in terms of what's happening. I think there are certain departments in the city of Ottawa who know what's going on and they care, and they are certainly providing more resources to us. But I think ultimately, I don't know if it's the charge of the people involved or the not-for-profits, but to attack the stigma head on and just saying this is a disease. It's like cancer.
Yeah.
It's a disease. We have no choice.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure whose responsibility is it, but I know at Serenity, we spend a great deal of time trying to explain why we do what we do.
Yeah.
It's the why.
Yeah.
I think if we spent a little bit more effort on that, it would make more sense.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I find like newscasts like the CBC, they do a great job of making people aware of the problem.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
But if you don't start to offer explanations of what the possible solutions are, you just scare the bejesus out of the public.
Yeah. I agree. Because I listened to that on CBC myself.
Right.
And the first thing that kind of hit me afterwards was they didn't talk about the why.
No.
Why
Why
are people doing this?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like I always say, no one wakes up in the morning and says, today I'm going to be an alcoholic.
Right.
Right? I think, why not? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't really have a good conversation without talking about the family disease. And we always say here at Jericho, this is a family disease. What does that mean?
Well, I think it means that the addict does not exist alone. The actions and the effect that the addict has on themselves will undoubtedly impact the family they're attached to.
Yeah.
So I think in part it has a lot to do with understanding the complex nature of the disease and certainly the complex nature of how humans form bonds.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so interlinked.
Yeah. And do you think that we can't attack this problem leaving the family out?
I think if you try to leave the family out, you're only you may succeed in the short term, but not in the long term. We all come from families.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all belong to families.
Yeah.
And whether it's through blood or just through friendship, we exist in units and groups and families.
Yeah.
So
we are social
that.
beings,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest struggle for a family who has a son or a daughter who is in treatment?
I think the hardest thing is understanding that they can't help the addict until the addict understands that they need to help themselves. And the hardest thing is to watch someone go through another horrible episode, another bottom, another huge mess up, and to stand back and not help them. That's the hardest thing. That's the absolute hardest thing. And for a parent to show so much love and support by not doing anything is really difficult.
Detached love.
But that's what it takes. Oftentimes that's what it takes.
And it's and to be able to walk with someone through that is incredible, because our first instinct is always to help out, right?
Yeah.
How can I make this better?
Yeah.
As a friend of mine says, my job became lessening the consequences for my son.
Yes.
And his actions.
Yes. Yeah.
And it consumed him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing too that I find interesting with an organization like Serenity that has been around for so many years, I mean, we have children who grew up with their parents who were helped by Sister Louise, and now they're adults.
Yep.
And they need help.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing how the cycles.
Yeah. The circle.
It keeps on continuing.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we, as organizations, how do you think we can all start taking what we talked about earlier, kind of those silos down? How do we start helping each other out? I always say on this podcast, nothing we do is proprietary. We don't own
it's not, yeah.
the 12-step model, and we're going to keep it here.
Yeah.
And you have to come here and buy my book.
Right.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Nothing we do is proprietary. So why are we so hesitant to help each other out?
Well, I look at it, it's, years ago when I was getting my master's in management for the Canadian voluntary sector at McGill, we studied these models, and one was the scarcity model, and one was the abundance model. Unfortunately, we tend to do a lot of our work from the scarcity model.
Why?
Well, because I think we honestly think that there's only so many donors. There's only so much support out there.
Yeah.
There's just enough for me, and I got to hold on to what I have.
Yeah.
The abundance model, oppositely, always says, no, there's plenty out there. Learn how to work with one another. Things will come to you. It's endless. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Cooperate.
Yeah.
Don't hide. Two very different models. I think in our field, we sometimes use both lenses at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's, all because it's just, I look at the number of small not-for-profits who could probably hire one fundraiser.
Yeah.
And share the fundraiser. And imagine sharing donors. Oh my God! What a concept! Sharing donors? That's going to blow your mind, isn't it?
Okay, we're done here.
We're done here. Bye. Out! Get out of here right now.
Who brought
You
this
are
idealist
persona
in?
non grata.
Holy jeez!
Get out of here now.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
I would.
Do you see the pressure that would take off of these organizations?
Of course it would. Yeah. Of course it would. Yeah. It's like, imagine sharing a CFO, sharing a fundraiser, sharing an accountant, sharing a program officer. Because ultimately we all do kind of the same thing.
Well, that's just it. That's just
ways.
it. Yeah. And I think
ways.
you've enlightened me this evening, because I think the proprietary that we think we have, the proprietary is our funders.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we don't want to share those with anybody.
God, no.
And if I'm working or sharing resources with some other NFP, some of my donors might go over there.
Yeah. God forbid.
Wow. Okay. I think, I'm enlightened. Okay. So let's go back. How do we start taking down the silos?
Yeah. No, I do think by talking to one another and figuring out what we do and sort of how we can complement each other. Where does my role and yours begin? And also I think it's important to look at the synergies of the whole thing and understand, I think we can both work with one another in certain areas. But there has to be a willingness on the part of the sector to come together.
Okay, so you've hit it right on the head. One of our previous guests, we were talking, and one of the ideas that she had shared with us was that where do we start? Well, she said, let's just start by getting together.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do
Right.
a dinner.
Yeah.
Not a formal dinner, but an informal, let's get together, at least just start talking to one another.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're from the Shepherds. Oh, you're from, oh, nice to meet you. What do you do?
Yeah.
And because I firmly believe that all great ideas come from that initial conversation.
Yeah.
And we don't talk to one another.
No.
We
No.
don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why we started this podcast.
Yeah.
Because I was like, we got to start talking to one another, right?
Yeah.
How are we supposed to help each other out? Because we're all in the same game,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
all in the same game. And that's to help others who can't help themselves.
Yes. Yeah.
So why aren't we working together? Okay. The pandemic. How did you guys fare during the pandemic?
Well, as I said earlier, we pivoted fast from doing our services in person to online.
Yeah.
With our workshops, we were actually to offer more workshops, and we started to know that more people were actually taking these workshops as well. So our services during the pandemic actually increased, all because it was easier for people to find us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in some respects, it's actually worked in our favor.
Yeah.
I think our counselors were pleasantly surprised, meaning starting to do more online work was effective.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in some respects, in some respects, it forced us to rethink how we actually offer our
services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually been cool. And as we discussed earlier, there have been more monies floating about.
Yeah.
And we've certainly benefited from that as well. So, but now having said all this, the downside, of course, is that our services are, we are working full out.
Yeah.
The demand has never been this large for us.
It's been exponential.
So people have truly been affected adversely.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts, the isolation factor alone for those who are struggling with substance use disorders has been horrible.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, we know that we are going to experience an even bigger demand as we come out of this.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the downside. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Before we go to question and answer, I want to talk about the word scrappy. I like the word scrappy. We always say it here at Jericho, we're scrappy.
Yeah.
Why are not-for-profits scrappy? And you when we had talked about this in our pre-conversation, you said we're very light on our feet.
Yeah.
So how did that help us during the past year and a half?
Well, I think how I can tell you how it helped Serenity was to look at our lineup of programming and the facilitators who run our educational workshops were able to figure out pretty damn fast what the people needed.
Yeah.
It was really like, okay, like scrap this one, let's do that one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that one's not working, let's do this one.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our short-term counseling was focused on issues that were basically the issues were always there. However, the pandemic made them much larger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, the themes kept coming up over and over again.
Reoccurring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our aftercare, just in terms of what people were having to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but it's nice to be, one of the one of the benefits of being small is you can change things.
Yeah.
If it
Yeah.
doesn't work, scrap it and
Yeah.
do something
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. And how we're the lack of bureaucracy
Really helps.
allows us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, what do you think? I don't know. What do you think? Okay, that's not working. Well, let's stop doing it.
There's no pipe to shoot it
No,
up,
there's
right?
no-
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Yeah, let's see what sticks and go
Yeah.
from there. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And we know, and I try to make this I repeat myself on every podcast episode because I think we really need to understand this. Maclean's had done an article and they called it every 49 minutes, and there was a week period, I think it was last May, where more people were dying from overdoses and related deaths than people were dying from COVID, and it was every 49 minutes in this week period across Canada, someone was dying from an overdose or alcohol-related illness. And that number stuck in my head because I thought, my goodness, if we care that much about society and what's going on with COVID and the people dying, and this overdose number is surpassing it, why aren't we caring as much about that? And I don't expect an answer from you.
I have an answer.
Hit me.
But we're almost
That's
out of
okay. That's
time.
okay. We don't got any questions.
Okay. I liken this towards AIDS in the 80s. It took the government years to finally understand that, we've got to do something about this. These homosexuals are dying.
Yeah.
I guess we're finally going to have to care about them.
Yeah.
It was the activists that finally got the government off of its ass.
To do something.
Yes. It was the people who were involved and affected in their own lives by their own actions, by their own illnesses, who finally said, we've had enough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, addicts, there's so much working against them in order to be able to stand up and say, I need help. This is a disease.
Yeah.
It's the same as AIDS. It's a disease.
Yeah.
It's not a choice.
Yeah.
So, I do think that there are some similarities here.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a lot of differences as
Yeah.
well. But I do think that when the governments in the U.S. and Europe and Canada finally started to understand that if we don't do something about this, this will continue and it will get much worse.
I hate to hear that because I think it is worse.
Yeah.
And I think this pandemic has lifted that blanket of worseness.
It has.
Right?
It has.
And so that's where my heart goes is.
But the silver lining here is, and it is a silver lining, if you get it more out in the open,
Yeah.
the more people understand this.
Yes.
The more people live with it.
Yeah.
The more they start to understand what are the consequences of inaction versus action.
Yeah.
Change does happen.
Yeah.
So I am optimistic.
Well, that's good to know, because every now and then I personally don't feel that optimism. Sometimes I feel like we're hitting a wall, and more people need to understand. I kind of relate it. I'll be very personal in my relation to this. I had drinking for 25 plus years, chronically in the last 10, chronically. And I couldn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. How many promises I had made to myself, to my parents, to my significant others at that time. And every time I broke those promises. And because my solution, or the solution that I thought, was that it was a matter of willpower, you know? And I remember hearing it from my mother. Don't you have the willpower to stop this? God bless her, right? Because she didn't know any different. And so I always thought that this was a matter of willpower. And you know, I just didn't have it. And I was screwed, you know? Sorry, everyone. And it wasn't until I walked into my first AA meeting. It wasn't my first, but I mean my first real attempt at listening. and it was at St. Basil's Church, and they were doing the illness chart, because it's a lecture meeting, and someone was explaining the allergy, the obsession, the emotional gamut that I'm living in of fear, guilt, shame, resentment. And for the first time in my life, it felt like someone had hit me on the side of the head with a brick. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Right. And it started to make sense. The fog started to be lifted. And the bonus is that 12-step program gave me a solution. Right. And that's kind of what I wished for people today, is to get that brick across the head moment.
Yeah.
And realize this is not a moral choice. This is not a decision.
Yeah.
This is a disease.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I don't do something about it,
yeah,
you know, what does the big book in AA say? Jails, institutions, or death. That's the result.
Yep.
And so as a society, we need to understand that. Because that every 49 minutes is not going to be for a week.
No.
It's going to be for a month, and then it's going to be for 4 months, and yeah. So that's my passion about this. You know, we really have to help people understand that this is a disease. Yeah. Okay, let me do a couple of announcements. Our next Voices in Recovery episode on November 25th, I will be talking with Father Alan McDonald. Woo! I can't wait for that one. Our podcast is available on all major streaming platforms beginning next Thursday. Our producer John does such a great job of editing them up and taking out all my little hums and haws and tapping on the table. For more information on Serenity Renewal, and I'm going to repeat this again because they are such a good organization, and what they do well. Let me repeat that. What they do well. And we at Jericho Road are very fortunate that in the new year, we're going to be doing the Family of Origins at Serenity Renewal. I'm so excited about doing that. So for more information on Serenity Renewal, visit their website at serenityrenewal.ca. And I'm going to give their phone number because a lot of us still may have issues when it comes to getting on the web and whatnot, especially, I mean, our library is open in Ottawa now. I was talking to someone the other day, and I think a couple are open, but some of us don't have web access. So if you want to give them a shout, their phone number is 613-523-5143. I'll repeat that real quick. It's 613-523-5143. And the last announcement I got to do is a self-serving announcement. Not for myself personally, but for Jericho Road. I'm plugging our auction. It's auction time, everyone. So our silent auction starts November 22nd, leading up to our live auction on November 29th. Both of them are free this year. Go to our website, sign up for our silent auction. We have some amazing stuff this year, and we use Octria as our platform for the silent auction. It's simple, it's easy, it's fun. When you bid on something and someone outbids you, you get a little notification on your phone, so you can go back in and rebid on it. I love that. And then our live auction is November 29th, where I myself and Amy Lauber, our Director of Continuing Care, will be hosting our auction. And we got a lot of really nice items this year, and we even have some what do we say, in country vacations, so you don't got to get out of here. Thank you. Within Canada getaways. I knew there was some wording for it, right? Jeez, you're lucky I'm not the PR guy. Yeah, so check it out. I really encourage you to do so, and it supports Jericho Road, and so I thank you for that. Um, Robert, I don't know what to say other than thank you. The conversation was enlightening. I've learned something, and so to me, that's a bonus. And I guess I want to say thank you for serving on the board at Serenity Renewal, because those positions are integral to the operation of these services. And without volunteer board members, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Because in this province, you need to have a board to run an NFP. Yes. So if there's no board, there's no NFP. And so from myself, from Jericho Road, from all the other people in the city who do such good work, we say thank you for serving on the board. And yeah, just thank you for being willing to do those things and step out for the people who can't step out for themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Remember to join us in 2 weeks with Father Alan McDonald. And please go on to our website and check out our auction and any other information that you may be curious about. John's done such a wonderful job there. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for joining us. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. And we'll see you soon. Goodbye.